The room is quiet, but not calm. There's still that leftover tension in the air, like something unfinished even though the conversation ended 10 minutes ago. Your phone is face down now. You're not even looking at it. But you know what's there? Your last message. I'm sorry. It didn't feel true when you typed it. Not exactly. It felt necessary, like pressing a button just to make the noise stop. And now everything is quiet again. But something inside you isn't. It's a strange thing to admit, even to yourself, that sometimes you apologize, even when you're not wrong, not because you believe it, but because continuing the argument feels heavier than swallowing the truth. Actually, that's not even the right word for it. It's not swallowing the truth. It's choosing silence over friction, peace over clarity. Or maybe, and this is the harder thing to admit, you're choosing connection, even if it costs you something small each time. And no one really talks about this version of it, the quiet apology, the strategic one, the one that ends things, but doesn't resolve them. There's this moment, right before you say it, when your chest feels tight. Your thoughts are still lined up, ready to explain your side. You could keep going. You could prove your point. But then you see the shift in their face, or hear that tone change, and something in you just drops. Not fear exactly, more like anticipation of where this is heading. And you've been here before. You've learned that some arguments don't really have an end. They just stretch, longer, louder, colder. So instead of staying in it, you step out. With one word, sorry, you don't even always realize you're doing it. Like the way your thumb hovers over the keyboard for a second longer than it should. The way you delete your own sentence halfway through typing it because it suddenly feels too much. The way your tone softens mid-argument, not because you agree, but because you're already backing down. These aren't conscious decisions. They're practiced. Practiced in ways you probably don't even remember learning. Somewhere along the way, your nervous system figured something out. That conflict doesn't always lead to understanding. Sometimes it leads to distance, to withdrawal, to that quiet coldness that lingers long after the words are gone. And maybe, at some point, that distance hurt more than being misunderstood. So your system adapted. It found a shortcut. Ended early. Diffuse it quickly. Apologize. Psychologists sometimes describe this as a form of conflict-avoidant attachment, not as a flaw, not as weakness, but as a pattern that forms when connection feels conditional. When staying close to someone requires you to manage not just your own emotions, but theirs too. There's research from people like John Bowlby that explains how early relational experiences shape how we handle closeness and conflict later in life. But honestly, you don't need the research to recognize it. You've lived it. Like how you sometimes rehearse arguments in your head, but never say them out loud. Or how you remember exactly what you wanted to say, but only after everything is already over. Or that strange habit of checking their mood before expressing your own. Not consciously, just automatically. Like you're reading the room before you enter it. Even when the room is just the two of you. And here's the part that feels confusing. Because from the outside, it looks like maturity. You don't escalate things. You don't shout. You let things go. People might even say, he's so calm, so understanding. But inside, it doesn't always feel like understanding. It feels like disappearing a little, just enough to keep things smooth. And if any of this is landing somewhere real for you, you're not alone in it. And if these quiet explorations of the heart feel worth returning to, subscribing means you won't miss the next one. There's a specific kind of moment you probably know well. When you're mid-argument and you realize the other person isn't really listening anymore. They're reacting, defending, preparing their next point. And suddenly, explaining yourself feels pointless. So instead of pushing harder, you soften. Not because you agree, but because you've already accepted that being right won't change how this feels. You've learned that some truths don't land, at least not in the middle of emotion. So you trade truth for timing. You think, I'll just let this go. But what you're really doing is carrying it alone instead. And it shows up later, in small ways, like the way your energy shifts after an argument ends peacefully. The way you go quiet, even though everything is technically okay. The way you replay the conversation hours later, adjusting your words in your head, like editing something that already happened. You don't bring it up again. You just absorb it. There's also this thing you might not have noticed. How quickly you move into repair mode. Even when you didn't cause the damage, you start softening your tone. Choosing your words more carefully. Trying to bring things back to normal. It's almost like it's your responsibility to restore the emotional balance. This isn't random. It's something your mind learned about safety. That peace equals closeness. and closeness must be protected, even if it means stepping back from yourself. There's a concept in psychology called emotional labor, often talked about in different contexts, but here, it looks like this quiet management of tension, not just feeling your own emotions, but anticipating, adjusting, and stabilizing someone else's. And over time, it becomes invisible, even to you. But here's the part no one really says out loud. Every time you apologize when you're not actually sorry, you're not just ending the argument. You're teaching yourself that your perspective is optional, negotiable, secondary, not in a dramatic way, in small, almost unnoticeable shifts, like lowering the volume of your own voice, little by little, until one day, it's harder to hear. And the unexpected part, this habit, the one that looks like peacekeeping, can slowly create the very distance you were trying to avoid. Because connection doesn't just come from harmony, it comes from being known. And if parts of you keep getting edited out, then what's being understood isn't really you. It's a quieter version, a safer version, a version that doesn't disrupt. That doesn't mean you should start fighting every battle. That's not the point. It's just noticing. Noticing the moment where you disappear, the second where you choose peace, and quietly leave yourself behind. Because the truth is, you're not apologizing because you're weak. You're not doing it because you don't have something to say. You're doing it because somewhere inside you learned that connection was fragile, and you became very, very good at protecting it, even if it meant protecting it alone. There's something deeply human about that. Something almost tender. The way you try to keep things from breaking, the way you smooth over edges before they can cut too deep. It says a lot about how much you care, but it also says something else. That you've been carrying more of the relationship than anyone ever acknowledged. Maybe that's why, after everything is fine, there's still that quiet exhaustion. Not from the argument itself, but from holding back, from choosing silence, from being the one who lets it go again. And maybe, just maybe, that version of you deserves to be seen too. Not fixed, not changed overnight. Just noticed, because you're allowed to want peace, and also to want to be understood. Those two things aren't opposites, even if they've felt that way for a long time. So the next time that word sits on your tongue, I'm sorry, maybe you'll feel the weight of it a little more clearly. Not to stop yourself, not to force a different ending, just to recognize what it's costing you. In that moment, there's nothing broken about the way you've been handling things. It makes sense. Every part of it makes sense, and maybe that's where this starts to shift. Not in what you say next time, but in what you finally allow yourself to feel, without rushing past it, somewhere between silence and conflict. There's a version of you that doesn't disappear. You don't have to find it all at once. Just notice when it shows up, and maybe let it stay a second longer than usual.